an accountability crisis.
Emotions are high in Hamilton County in the wake of 2 deaths. A deputy killed in the line of duty and an 18-year-old killed by police.
And let's take you through the timeline to catch you up here. Cincinnati police say Thursday morning a CPD officer shot and killed 18-year-old Ryan Hinton while chasing he and 3 others after they jumped out of a stolen car in East Price Hill. Police say Hinton was armed at the time. CPD first shared body camera video with Hinton's family before sharing it with the public Friday morning around 11:15. Approximately 2 hours later, Ryan's father, Rodney, is accused of hitting and killing Hamilton County Deputy Larry Henderson with his car near UC. On Saturday, a judge ordered Rodney to be held without bail until his no bond hearing, which is set for tomorrow.
Tonight, WCPO 9 is bringing you team coverage on this case and the questions it's prompting. We want to start with WCPO 9 News reporter Connor Steffen, who was at a news conference today held by the Hinton family and their attorneys. Connor?
Tanya and Craig, this is one of the more emotional news conferences I can remember covering. You had multiple family members break down in tears several times throughout it. It was very obvious that this is still a fresh and painful loss for them. We heard from attorneys representing Ryan Hinton's estate, as well as his own family, grandmother, grandfather, cousin, little sister. They wanted to share more about how they are remembering Hinton after his death. But the press conference began with attorneys offering condolences to the family of retired Hamilton County Sheriff's Deputy Larry Henderson. They consider his death another tragic loss. Family called the media here to speak on the life of Ryan Hinton, but also to raise questions after reviewing body camera footage from his shooting death. Their main question is this: was the officer justified in using deadly force?
What I seen was 2 persons made a mistake. My grandson made a mistake of being there, and the officer, he was trying to get back to his family too.
We're also learning some new information tonight. Hinton's family says he attended Don High School before it shut down. He was also not in school at the time of his death. Family and attorneys didn't dispute that Hinton was sitting in a stolen car or had a gun on him at the time of the incident. His cousin says, though, that he should have never been in that stolen car because he was locked out of the house the night before.
I was asleep. Ryan, I'm so sorry. This was never supposed to happen to you. Ever. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I'm so sorry, Ryan. Just know he won't put a beater.
The family is asking the public not to rush to judgment. Their attorneys are reviewing every report and angle of the incident they can get their hands on. At that point, attorneys say they will announce what, if any, next steps they will take. Now, the family refrained from answering many questions about Ryan's father, Rodney Hinton Jr. He does face 1 charge of aggravated murder, and he's currently scheduled to be in court tomorrow for a bond hearing. As of now, he is in custody in the Claremont County Jail. We're live in Corryville. Connor Steffen, WCPO 9 News.
Connor, thank you. Police arrested 3 other people in connection to the incident that resulted in Ryan Hinton's death. 18-year-old Sincere Grigsby, 19-year-old DeAnthony Bullocks, and 18-year-old Jarrell Austin. Each face charges of receiving stolen property and obstruction. Police say on Thursday in East Price Hill, all 4 ran from a stolen car when marked cruisers approached. Thursday at the Westview condo complex on Warsaw Avenue. Grigsby appeared in court this morning. His bond is set at $50,000.
If we're going to have a serious conversation, we've got to address the bigger issue here. We've got to address it with honesty, and somebody has to say it. We have a culture that hates accountability.
We are very close family. This is killing us. I can't even express how I feel right now about, I'm angry because it shouldn't have never happened. I want to find out exactly what steps was taken and the protocol. And if everything comes out that it's not what it should have been, we need to do something about change in training and diversity and understanding us as a black culture. We as black people, we don't deserve to be killed. just because we're running away from the police. We're scared just as much as they are, whether we did something right or wrong. This is everyday life for us, being scared of the police. Take that in consideration while everybody is making comments on the parent should have did this and the parent should have did that.
Okay, come on. Because I ain't worried about it.
Why did we sit and listen to a family member and family member after family member weasel their way around the truth and look for an out? We've been spoon-fed the lie that everything wrong in your life is someone else's fault. And so we don't even see how this mindset of a lack of accountability is impacting and harming our youth. This is not helping them. You heard the cousin. He wasn't supposed to be there because, he got locked out. And then the grandma, she's like, well, I want to know the protocol. And I want to make sure the protocol was followed. And then grandma, she spent all this time talking about fear of the police. How every Black person lives in constant fear of the police. I'm like, ma'am, only certain kinds of people are tired and afraid of police. And it's typically the ones who commit crimes. And they're the ones who listen to all the fear mongering that the race hustlers keep peddling to Black people. Because I'm sorry. I have 2 sons. I have 2 daughters. I'm married to a Black man. And I got a whole lot of Black men as friends. And my sons are not afraid of the police. My daughters are not afraid of the police. My husband's not afraid of the police. And I darn sure am not afraid of the police. We all are highly melanated. And we're not special. I'm from the hood. And I ain't afraid of police. But I can tell you when people should be afraid. According to Romans 13, the ones who need to be afraid of the police are the ones who resist the authorities because they're up to no good. That's what the scriptures teach. What do the scriptures teach? Let's just review very quickly. Romans 13. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who's in authority? Then do what is good and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. That's the imperative. That's the admonition. If you do wrong, yes, you should be afraid. Why? For he does not bear the sword in vain. So why should we be afraid if we're doing what we're supposed to do? We shouldn't be afraid if we're doing what we're supposed to do. But the point of the text here is if you want to avoid God's wrath, and also for the sake of conscience, do what you're supposed to do. There was a time in this country when grandmas taught such wisdom to their grandbabies instead of coddling them and making excuses for them. But no, this is a new day. These new school grandmas, this matriarchal squalor, we ain't got a whole lot of those grandmas left. And then the granddaddy in the press conference, he's like, well, what I saw, he made a mistake. Well, no kidding. No kidding. But my question is, how is it that there's a father, a grandfather, and a grandmother, and no one has the good sense to raise a young man to understand these things? Let's have a conversation. The culture is failing our young people, and the family is failing our young people. And they're failing them because there is a breach somewhere that is causing this huge disconnect. And I believe I know and have identified what it is, but we're going to have to talk about that in a minute. I believe I've identified the breach. But from the way that this media presents the school status of Ryan, it sounds like he may have flunked out of school, but they didn't want to say it. So I'm like, did he flunk out? What do you mean the school was closed? I don't understand that. And so it's kind of like, well, the school closed down. So somehow we got to connect that to some sort of systemic racism, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't his fault. It doesn't matter. If you're caught with a weapon that you aren't lawfully supposed to have, you know what they'll say? Well, It's not your fault. We somehow that's got to get, mass incarceration is going to get blamed in that somehow. If you're fleeing in or from or using a stolen car with a gun in your hand, now police brutality is it. That's the blame or the cause or some other reason that makes absolutely no sense. It's never. When do we ever hear, I made a bad decision and this is all on me? I did this. It's never, these young people were not raised properly, and we need to look at the family structure and start doing some things a little differently. We never had that conversation. It's always, I'm the victim of circumstance. And no matter what, it can't be me. It has to be the system. Y'all, we are raising people who believe that accountability is oppression. I've heard these young people say it. But praise be to God that the Bible don't play that game. For one, you can't be a Christian and be oppressed. So you can just scrap that right there. You don't get that. You don't get that category. Can't assign yourself to that one. Galatians 6:5 says each one must bear his own load. Y'all, that means you don't get to outsource your oppression or the consequences or the aspects of your life that are your responsibility and yours alone. And no, being upset doesn't give you a license to kill. Listen, I get it. The father in this circumstance, Rodney Hinton, he was hurting bad. Oh, he's hurting bad. No one's denying that. He just lost his son. No one's minimizing the life of the young man. But emotionally, many of us do not think rightly about this because we think, well, it doesn't matter that he had a gun. It doesn't matter that the car was stolen. It doesn't matter that him and all his friends fled on foot. None of that matters. They just want us to emote and grieve without asking deeper questions like, what the heck happened here? Why is the family saying he wasn't supposed to be there because he got locked out? Like, what? Grief does not justify murder. It does not. Emotion does not equal exemption from justice. We learned that the gospel teaches us, yes, God is a God of mercy, but he's also a God of justice. And so when you kill someone in cold blood because of something someone else did, that is not justice. That's called sin. It's sin, it's reactionary, and it's deeply troubling. And that is exactly what we see here in the case of what the father did. And so when I examine what this father did, I'm like, why are men today so super emotional? And I want to talk about something that nobody ever wants to say out loud. And that is that we are living in a generation of emotionally unstable men who were raised without discipline. They were raised without structure. There was no order. And in most cases, without a father in the home who modeled those things in front of him. That's not just sociology. The scriptures speak so much about this. Proverbs 13:24 says, he who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is diligent to discipline him. Y'all, discipline and self-control, those are biblical concepts. And men are characteristically known to possess said traits. So what are we witnessing here? I think when men are raised in matriarchal squalor, and yes, I said it, matriarchal squalor, where the women are running everything, emotions run wild, emotions are king. Logic goes on vacation. We end up raising boys who are taught to feel first, act second, and think maybe never. It's a generation where words hurt. And since the words hurt, we've got to resort and take extreme measures to right the wrong. I.e., now I got to kill you. Y'all, I'm going to do a video on it. I didn't have time to get it in today. On Piers Morgan. Y'all know there's this other controversy that I haven't covered yet where the white girl was calling the little autistic baby the N-word. And I'm not saying that it's right, obviously. But what I want to talk about is how Mark Lamont Hill, a whole grown man, just at the threat of this obviously racist white woman being provoked to utter the N-word, this man had a whole meltdown and was tweaking.
About this, I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you will
go
not
on then,
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M-
not have
Go on,
free
say
speech.
go on. Say the M word. Go on.
No.
Don't invite.
No.
No.
I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only one here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here, you and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and to ask her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Pierce. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know she's racist, and I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you.
I've never seen anything like it. I was like, this is what the Democrat left produced. There wasn't an inch of testosterone left in that man's body. Just weak and whiny. I was like, that's it. That is the black man that the left wants to push to the forefront and say, that's who we are. Just the threat of a white woman calling you the N-word. Hey, don't you dare, Pierce. Like, if you entice her to say it, I was like, what you gonna do? You gonna melt like the Wicked Witch of the West? Like, what's wrong with you? The word, just the word. I said, listen, do not tell me that black people are not empowering the white supremacists every time they melt down and start shaking in their boots at the thought of somebody calling them the N-word. You weak jellyback punk. I don't fight men. And you better be glad, Mark Lamont Hill, that this Irish sea moss is regulating my hormones. Because if I had let this go on, the amount of testosterone imbalance that I have, I probably could take you down. It'd probably be easy. I'm talking about like on a day with my bad knee, I could have probably I could take on Mark Lamont Hill. He too weak. He too jellyback soy boy to even be considered masculine. That man, y'all can't wait to cover it. Oh, we're going to have fun with that one. This man was melting down because Pierce was wrong for this. Pierce was trying to provoke her since she believes she has the right to say it. And truth be told, hey, if black folks out here saying the N-word, let the white folks say it too. I want to see who's going to win the fight. That's what I want to see. Because if you allow a word that you use in your everyday vernacular against your own people to all of a sudden the word has so much strength and resilience and power. When a white woman says it, you deserve to have your butt whooped. You deserve it. You deserve it. But we're not covering that right now. Let me get back to the subject at hand. The father of Ryan Hinton, Rodney Hinton, he didn't respond with restraint. I get it. He is grieving. But here's what the matriarchal side of the YouTube streets are arguing. Well, he was hurting. Him was hurting. So therefore, he had to do it. I'm like, wow. Wow, you ain't been around enough men. He didn't go and grieve in a healthy way. Men should absolutely have the space and freedom to grieve. But what you don't do, you don't get to respond with rage. Now you want to respond with rage, go punch a hole in your own wall so that you can go, when it all settles down and you heal, you can fix it and patch up the drywall yourself. Show yourself strong, pimping. You punch the hole, now go fix the hole. Half of them they don't know how to fix drywall anyway because they weak. But the point I'm making, that man didn't go and grieve in a healthy way. I don't know if he has other children, but responding the way he did, he wasn't looking for justice. He was emotional, and he was looking for someone to bleed. That's what he was looking for. And my argument, that's not masculinity. That is not strength. That isn't manhood. That is chaos disguised as care. And then it's manifested in a culture that has never learned anything else. That's all they know. Proverbs 16:32 says, whoever is slow to anger is better than the mighty. Did you get that? Slow to anger, you are better than the mighty. And he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. The Bible declares that the man or anyone who is slow to anger, oh, you're strong. And you're stronger than one who rules a city if you can rule your own spirit. Don't tell me that the God of the Bible did not leave us with wisdom from the scriptures on how we're supposed to understand these things. Deputy Henderson would be alive today if the daddy and the granddaddy and even that grandma had trained Ryan like the book of Proverbs talks about, where Proverbs 1, where the Solomon is in this letter to his son. I wrote it down. It says, "My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent." Grandmama and granddaddy and papa was supposed to tell Ryan, listen, all right, for whatever reason you ain't in school right now and you got locked out. Now, you can't wait till Ryan is 18. These are things that you train in the youth. You read to your children. My sons know Proverbs 1. Okay. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If the wrong crowd is nipping in your ear saying, come on, let's go. No. It says, do not consent. Not, if you get locked out, go and chill with a gun with your homies in a stolen car. No. The text goes on to say, if they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all the precious goods. We shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us, and we will all have one purse. Translation, let's go and get into some stuff. Let's go rob some people. Let's go be malicious. Let's go take things that don't belong to us, robbing and thugging and slanging and banging. That's essentially what Solomon was saying. That's what he's saying. Here, that is how a wise father trains his young son. And then the text goes on and says, my son, do not walk in the way with them. This is where fathers be like, you don't run with the wrong crowd. You don't seek affirmation from invisible friends and from them other little hood rats and hoodlums on the street who ain't got no daddy. I'm your father, and this is the young man I am raising you to be. That's what fathers do. Crime is not new. The wrong crowd didn't just all of a sudden manifest. No, we had fathers in the home that trained their sons in righteousness, trained their sons how to have restraint and self-control and respect for authority, and to be able to scope out and recognize that's the wrong crowd. Those dudes don't mean you no harm. No, I ain't letting you grow your hair out there looking like you got on some moldy Cheetos on your head. Cut your hair. We don't wear our hair like that in this house. Now you ain't putting all them little dangly earrings in your ear. You a boy. Pull your pants up. Where's your belt? Why I see your drawers? We've never even had such a conversation like that in my house. I wish one of my sons would. My son knew at 7 that it was something wrong with a whole human out in the street with their butt hanging out. Like, he knew. I have it on video. Where one day this young man walked into our store with his drawers showing and half his butt out, and my son, being his mother's child, did not restrain his lips, and an earshot of the young man was like, Mama, his butt is hanging out. Oh my goodness. Why is he doing that? Where's his belt? And I'm like, son. I had to take the boy to the car and said, son, he wore his pants like that on purpose. My son refused to believe it. He was like, oh, no, he didn't. No one's doing that on purpose. I said, Exhibit A. I said, son, that boy walked into our store looking for a mattress with his whole tail hanging out. And my other son, who was less than 20 months under him, was like, well, that's just nasty. Like they are appalled. They don't even know what to do with this discovery, this new information. And I use it as a teachable moment to be like, listen, there's a whole lot of people in this world that think it's okay for their pants to sag and they got on a belt. And so I asked my son, I said, what would you do in that situation? And of course, Brandon, who is the family comedian, Brandon had to be like 5. He said, well, if my if my pants were hanging down, I'd just get bigger. He said, what did he say? Did he say he would just get bigger pants, no, smaller pants? He said, I would just get smaller pants. Like in the innocence of this little boy's mind, he even had sense enough to be like, well, if your pants are hanging and you got a belt, you need a better belt and you need some smaller pants or pants that just fit. This is what fathers teach their boys. And let me finish just reading that. I'm going to read it again. My son, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil and they make haste to shed blood. Y'all, there was a time, I know it's hard to believe, in this country where parents taught these self-evident truths to their kids. It was just normal. But not anymore. No. You know what we busy doing? We're too busy teaching 4-year-olds how to do the boots on the ground line dance where the little baby is popping her little underdeveloped hip like a little thought in training. That's what we're doing. I seen that on my TikTok timeline and I was like, did they just name a little girl Miss Shirley? Why is she 4 years old? And when I say she throwing it in the creek, as my mama used to say, she throwing it in the creek, just popping a little. I'm like, this is a problem. And then the ignorant mama or the auntie or whoever's exploiting the child like this, they go and put it on the internet for other perverts to enjoy. I said, I got to cover that too. I don't know if I'll ever cover all the foolishness going on in the culture, but what I want to talk about now is the dehumanization of police. And we need to talk about it because I want to shift to the response that we've seen online. Because this part is even more disgusting than the crime itself. There are people on Al Gore's internet right now that are praising Rodney Hinton, the father. They're calling him a hero, saying, he took justice in his own hands. I'm like, y'all are wicked. I'm like, what? You kill a man who had nothing to do with your son's death and you get celebrated. This is what we doing. We having GoFundMe's for these people now. Yeah, this is what happens when we dehumanize the police. We don't see them as people. They're not image bearers. We see them as targets. And so if you're in a uniform, now you're a villain. But if you look, act, and carry yourself like a thug, you are a martyr. This is the George Floydian effect. If you a thug doing all kinds of wickedness, you a martyr. But if you're in a police uniform, you're the villain. This is the kind of thinking that's wicked. Let me remind you guys of what Romans 12:19 says. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. Y'all that means that there is wrath from God that is reserved for those who enact wrongdoing on others. God is like, I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to repay. That's the word of God. So yes, God is love. But in order to leave it, whatever it is, to the wrath of God implies that God is love and he's also wrath. Let us not divorce or elevate one attribute of God with the other. He is love. He is justice. He is wrath. He is truth. He is all those things, but he's wrath. Don't forget the wrath parts. And then I've already read to you what Romans 13 affirms, and we'll just translate it quickly. The badge is not your enemy because the sword belongs to God, not to you. And as a result, we are producing a generation of emotional arsonists, y'all. I mean, they're just arsonists. We're seeing more and more people who they just set fire to truth, justice, throw reason to the wind, all because they can't handle the heat of accountability. And accountability is too much like right. So my argument is we don't need more protests. We don't need more TikTok tears. We need repentance. We need fathers who disciple and raise their sons to be men. We need men, not Mark Lamont Hill type soy boys. We need men who rule their emotions and who don't allow their emotions to rule them. If he's your picture of manhood, then no wonder why we got problems. And Lord knows, y'all, we need churches that preach Christ. Okay, not the coddling, effeminate sermons with the behavior modification, motivation speeches. No, we need churches who preach Christ, who are not going to coddle you, who are not going to demonize the police and jumping on the same false narratives that the world does, such as hands up, don't shoot, or I can't breathe. Like, why are these sermons coming out the pulpits? This is a cultural problem. Black culture has begun to turn murderers into martyrs just because they're grieving or because they refuse to accept that there's something wrong with the culture. How is that the culture? How is it? Like, the culture goes after a pastor. We just witnessed this with Philip Anthony Mitchell. The culture goes after a pastor who has to remind his congregation of the same biblical truth that I just outlined in Romans 13. I just talked about it from the Bible. How is it that there are pastors? Unfortunately, he backtracked that, but the truth is true. How is it that there are pastors that refuse to teach what accords with sound doctrine and to be a voice of biblical clarity? You know how? It's because the problem is absolutely cultural, but it's also spiritual. And the only antidote that I know of that can deal with both the culture and the spiritual problem is the gospel. The gospel has always been the only solution and offers a better way. Why? The gospel tells us that through Christ, justice and mercy come together and they form like this beautiful relationship. There are implications of this glorious gospel, y'all. And it's justice and mercy meet, grace through faith, they meet through Christ. Vengeance now becomes victory through Jesus' resurrection, and Jesus conquers both sin and death, absorbs the wrath that we deserve in his body, and then rises from the dead with all power in his hands. And through Christ, sin, it's not justified. No, sin gets crucified, and then sinners, which is who we were, we become justified as if we had never sinned. That's what happens in the gospel. Ultimately, we get clothed in the righteousness of Christ with the great exchange, with the righteousness that's not our own, even though we guilty. I'm like, listen, that is the glorious gospel that answers this problem. So, why am I so vocal about the things that I'm vocal about? It's because we have to start making the gospel primary. It's the gospel that is our only hope in life and death. And I wish these pulpit pimps would stop begging the government and looking to the government to solve these problems when they are the mouthpiece of God himself. If they would just preach what accords with sound doctrine from the scriptures. Oh, the change that they see in their own communities, instead of begging the Democrats and the government, we need more money in the hood. No, we need more preaching of the cross in the hood. That's what we need. That's what we need. So